Welcome to Just a Minute. Oh, Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, it's my huge pleasure to welcome you to this special edition of Just a Minute from BBC Television Centre. This year, Just a Minute turns 45, and as a special birthday treat, we've taken over your television screens. So without further ado, please welcome to the show 4 talented performers, and they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Josie Lawrence, and seated on my left, Jason Manford and John Sergeant. Please welcome all 4 of them. Players will try to speak for just a minute on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. The other 3 panellists can challenge at any time they wish, and if I uphold the challenge, they gain a point and take over the subject. If not, the person speaking gains a point and keeps the subject. The person speaking, when the whistle goes, which tells us 60 seconds have elapsed, gains an extra point. And by the way, they can repeat the subject on the card. Paul, would you take the first subject? Once upon a time. Tell us something about that subject in this game. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Once upon a time is, of course, the traditional beginning of many a fairy story. Once upon a time, there was a princess who lived in a magic forest. She was young, 22. Nobody else could see her. She bathed naked in the lagoon. Sorry, I completely lost it. Who are these people?
You talked about her being naked and you went.
I went, it's gone.
No, it's your own vision destroyed it.
Yes, it is. I'm happy with the vision.
Josie, you challenged.
It was hesitation,
It was hesitation, my darling, so you have a correct challenge. You get a point for that. There are 44 seconds still available. Once upon a time, starting now.
Once upon a time always conjures up an idea of magical places. When somebody says in a dulcet tone, once upon a time to me, I feel compelled to grab the nearest pillow and suckle on my thumb. When...
John, you've challenged.
Technically, you can't suckle on your thumb. I mean, I've tried it, and it just does not work.
Yes, but you're not me, and I can suckle.
Yeah. She's got a thumb full of milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, look.
Now, within the rules of just a minute and grammar and language, I would incline to agree with you, John. You can suck your thumb, but not suckle on your thumb.
Oh, right.
So, John, you have a correct challenge. You have the subject, once upon a time. There are 28 seconds available, starting now.
Once upon a time is a phrase I have to use for my 4 grandchildren because they want me to read a story. The trouble is, once I say...
Josie, no, sorry. I said I thought it was a repetition of once, but of course it's in the title.
It's on the title.
I apologise,
and
John.
you can repeat the title or individual words in the title.
Sorry.
So, John, an incorrect challenge. A point to you. 20 seconds still available, starting now.
When I say once upon a time to my grandchildren, I feel...
there we are, Paul.
Repetition of grandchildren.
Yes, you've got too many...
Well, I mean, I was thrown by the interruption. I thought the audience wouldn't understand that I had grandchildren. I don't think that's fair.
I think they believe you.
Really? But I'm too young, aren't I?
I tell you what, John, it's not fair. It suckles.
Right. John, those are... You know what I like to do in this game? When someone gives a wonderful remark like that and gets a round of applause, I give a bonus point for that. Yes. Paul, you had a correct challenge, and you have 16 seconds. Tell us more about Once Upon a Time, starting now.
Once upon a time, there was a small girl called Goldilocks who was making her way through the woods. She came upon a cottage, knocked on the door, walked in, saw 3 bowls of porridge laid out on the table. She thought to herself, I don't think much of this is a buffet. Where is... Buffet's a good word.
So, as I said before, in this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton, and that situation's very fair at the end of the first round. Paul Merton, Josie Lawrence and John Sergeant have all got 2 points. Jason Manford has yet to speak. And, oh, you have spoken.
I'm just taking it all in, working it out, and then wait till I go. My God. I'm doing point after point
You've
after
already
point.
had a go at John,
That
which
would be
was lovely.
repetition.
But that's because we're pals.
Don't do point after point after point.
Right, Jason, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject is turning into my dad. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Well, over the years, I've found myself turning to my dad on many occasions, whether it be phrases that I'm using around the house, such as, if you're cold, then put a jacket on. Turn these lights off, it's not Blackpool illuminations. I found myself only recently sitting in the car waiting for my wife to actually get ready for a night out, thinking that would make her move a little bit faster. Of course, it didn't. And beeping the horn only annoys the neighbours.
Paul Challenge.
Bit of a hesitation.
Definite hesitation, I would have said.
Yes.
But, well, I think that's the first time you've actually spoken.
Yes,
Well,
we have only just got. How long was that? Was that like 8 seconds?
No.
That felt like about 2.5 minutes, was that not?
No. It was 31 seconds.
31 seconds, great.
That's all right. I'll take that.
Paul, you picked him up there on the hesitation. Correct challenge. Turning into my dad, starting now.
Turning into my dad is a phenomenon that you wouldn't experience.
Jason, challenge.
Well, I thought it was turning into my dad.
No, it wasn't actually.
Okay, sorry, I just thought it was about my dad. I thought, at least that sounds nothing like my dad.
I'll tell you what I'll do, because we enjoyed your interruption, give you a bonus point.
Okay. I'll take it.
But, Paul, you have another correct challenge,
Yeah.
and 29 seconds starting now.
Teenagers were only really invented in the 1950s. Before that, you were expected to dress like your parents as soon as you could reasonably be expected to do so. So a boy of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10...
Yes. Jason, you challenged.
Yeah, for repetition.
Of expected.
What was that what he said? Yeah. That's what I thought.
Well, Jason, you may not have played the game much, but you were quick there.
Man. It's funny how quick you pick it up.
Yes. So that was a correct challenge, a repetition. So you have a point for that. In 19 seconds, and you take back the subject of turning into my dad, starting now.
One way I know I'll never turn into my dad is because he's so good at getting rid of spiders out of the bath and I'm still making me cry.
John, challenge.
Spiders at the bath. I mean, what sort of English is that?
I never said at the bath.
At the bar?
I said out
OK.
He said out.
I said out
the
the bath.
bar.
Yeah, out the bar,
I think you're
spiders
being
out the bar.
regionalist. there,
You said
John.
bath, for a start.
Out of the
Just
bath.
northern, I'm sorry.
Really? I've never heard anyone say that before, but I don't travel much.
You've never travelled north of Watford, obviously. Because you
sorry
didn't
about
understand the North Country, did you there, John? Right. Jason, you have an incorrect challenge.
OK.
So you keep the subject. You've got another point, of course. Turning into my dad, 11 seconds starting now.
When getting rid of insects in our house, I have to shout the wife to get rid of them.
Josie, challenge.
I'm afraid he's already said wife.
Yes, your wife came before.
Did, yeah.
Asked her to
I've
go in
got
the
two
car.
of them, though. Now, it's a different person.
And even if you had 4, it was still with repetition. So, Josie, you had a correct challenge. You got the subject of turning into my dad, and there are 7 seconds starting now.
Of course, I'm a lady, so it would be physically impossible for me to find myself turning into my dad. Although I have got...
Oh, well done.
So, Josie Lawrence was then speaking when the whistle went, gained that extra point, and so she's now out in the lead with Paul Merton. And John Sergeant, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject, I'm sure this is right up your street, reggae. 60 seconds starting now.
I will be...
Hesitation?
Is that fair?
No,
don't think it is
you're
fair,
right.
is it?
You're right. Let's abandon the way of playing the programme in 45 years so that John can feel comfortable in what's being done.
Well, that's very generous of you, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have
Please, no, let him have it.
To be fair, as a regular TV
Yeah.
viewer, I
Yeah.
definitely would prefer to hear John's version of reggae.
Yeah.
So, John, they're giving it to you. So you have a point. And you have reggae still. You haven't got it yet because you haven't started. And you have 58 seconds starting. You ready, John? Starting now.
Reggae was always a rather frightening subject for me. I was going through a phase where I was trying to be a West Indian, tough, cool guy. When people said reggae in those days, you had to say, yeah, man. After a bit, I found this rather tedious because I hated the music and there was no point in pretending. So what I did then was to not say anything like that. I would say something like, or perhaps, or...
Josie challenged you.
A repetition of say.
Yes, you said say.
Say?
Yes.
People say things and they say other things, don't they? It's not...
In just a minute, if you repeat the word...
Say?
Yes, say. S-A-Y.
I think we should
This is
change
a
the rules
very
after 45 years and let John keep the subject. Yeah.
This is a very tough business. I mean,
I better ask you, Josie, do you want John to carry on with reggae?
No, I want the part.
Right, Josie, a correct challenge. You have 36 seconds available still. Reggae starting now.
Reggae is such sexy music. I think it's the offbeat rhythm that does it for me, and the twang of those guitars. My favourite was always Bob Marley and the Wailers. No, woman, I didn't cry. I was jamming in my kitchen to the rock-steady beat, or going down to Electric Avenue to meet my other friends. The trouble with reggae is it's quite difficult to dance to unless you're a cool person, and I am not. You have to have really bendy, soft...
Jason challenged.
I think Josie is a cool person. So I think that was incorrect.
Well, she's proving it now, isn't she? So
I
can we
love
give
you,
him a
Jason.
bonus point for speaking?
Yeah.
All right, Jason, you've not played the game before. You'll give you a bonus point. But Josie gets the point because she was interrupted.
Yes, sorry.
And there are 5 seconds still, Josie, with you on reggae starting now.
Let's all go to a party and dance to the rock-steady...
Paul challenge.
We had Rocksteady
Yeah, we
and,
did.
and we had dance
Yes.
before.
We did. We did.
Yes, you did, yeah.
Yeah.
Paul, you got in with 2 seconds to go. You haven't won any friends in the audience, but you won a point. And you've got 2 seconds on reggae starting now.
Bob Marley, Pete Tosh and Bunny Wailer made up...
So Paul Merton was speaking then with the whistle when gained that extra point. He's now equal with Josie Lawrence in the lead, closely followed by Jason Manford and John Sargent in that order. And Josie, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject is My Nemesis. Tell us something about my nemesis in this game, starting now.
My nemesis was a girl named Judy. Now, please remember that name because hopefully it will never be repeated. I remember my nemesis being beautiful.
Paul,
You say remember twice. Remember that name, and I do remember.
Yeah.
Oh, I did.
You did.
That, otherwise, I wouldn't have pressed the button.
I did.
You did.
I said remember
You
twice.
did, yes.
So, Paul, you have
Otherwise, I wouldn't have pressed the button.
All right. Don't labour the point.
We're caught in a time loop.
What did I do?
I had to press the button.
Sure.
Paul, the correct challenge, and you have 48 seconds. My nemesis, starting now.
My nemesis is a man who had exactly the same name as me at school. He went by the nomenclature of Paul Merton, and that was what I was really called when I was born. I had to change the letters that acquire the description of me when I became a...
Jason challenge.
Was there like a made-up word in there somewhere? Was there some sort of hesitation?
No,
after
Jason.
name? Sounded like you went...
I don't think I didn't cross species. I was panicking, but I didn't cross species.
There are occasions, Jason, when I give the benefit of the doubt.
No, that's fine.
And I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Paul.
I get
If I
it.
can redress the balance sometime later, I will do it for you.
Thank you, Nick.
But right now, Paul, the benefit of the doubt, you have the 33 seconds, my nemesis, starting now.
I suppose if you do have a nemesis, it's important to realise who he or she may be, because you could be indulged in normal social chit-chat at a party without realising the person standing in front of you in human form. Near the humus, in human form.
Yeah, it's trying to change it and goes into something else.
Yeah.
Josie, you challenge first.
Yes, hesitation.
Yeah, we call that hesitation. Josie, you have 18 seconds. You take back the subject of my nemesis, starting now.
My nemesis was better at everything apart from acting. At school, I excelled.
Jason, challenge.
repetition of school.
Yes, you mentioned school when you were talking before.
Do you remember?
I wouldn't cry, darling. You're only
Do
one
you know
point
what?
behind
I
Eddie.
bet she's enjoying this.
Jason, you've had a correct challenge. You've cleverly got in with 13 seconds to go on the subject of my nemesis, starting now.
My nemesis was a young man at school called Clifford Frame, who had very hairy arms from around the age of 11. I was always jealous of these limbs.
Josie, challenge.
Hesitation.
I think there was, you know,
Was there?
Jason.
Yeah,
yes,
you went
yes.
of her, these
Yeah,
limbs.
yes, yes. Right. And you cleverly
Yeah.
got in with 2 seconds to go, Josie. So 2 seconds. Tell us more about my nemesis, Josie, starting now.
My nemesis one day decided to...
Very good, very good.
So Josie Lawrence was then speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point, and she's now taken the lead, one ahead of Paul Merton, and then Jason Manford and John Sergeant are following in that order. And Paul, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject is, what lives at the bottom of my garden? 60 seconds, as usual, starting now.
What lives at the bottom of my garden is a secret underground network of spies devoted to overthrowing this country. I wandered down to the end of my garden and listened to their secretive plans being hatched under the moonlit sky. Their chief ambition is to replace Eamon Holmes with a huge animated puppet that acts like the real thing but doesn't eat as much. And this is extraordinary because the very foundation of British journalism is built on the career of this wonderful man. If he was to become something else that we couldn't trust, then I'm sure the people of Great Britain would say the news has changed. It's not what it was. What has happened to our esteemed Ulsterman? There is something about him that isn't the same as there were last week.
Jason, challenge.
I think repetition of the word same.
That's right, you did say same before.
Oh, I'm sure
Yeah,
I
you
said,
did.
yeah, I did, yeah.
He's not the same, you said earlier
Not the
on.
same, yeah.
And then same.
That's right. That's okay.
But you went for 50 seconds.
Oh, good.
And you get a point, of course, Jason. 10 seconds, as I said. What lives at the bottom of my garden, starting now?
What lives at the bottom of my garden is my brother in the shed. We let him move in a little while ago.
Josie, challenge.
I was going to say hesitation, and there wasn't really.
So, Jason, you're still there with an incorrect challenge. Another point to you, Jason. And what lives at the bottom of my garden, starting now?
My sibling finished university around 2 years ago and decided that he didn't want to actually pay.
So Jason Manford was speaking as a whistle win, gained an extra point for doing so. And his situation is that he's now equal with Paul Merton in second place. Josie Lawrence is still in the lead, one ahead. Jason, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is... Oh, lovely one. Tommy Cooper.
Oh.
Tell us something about that great comic and magician. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Well, Tommy Cooper is one of my absolute heroes in comedy, alongside Les Dawson and Dave Allen and Billy Connolly. He's a prop comedian, a...
Josie, challenge?
Hesitation,
There
I'm
was a
afraid.
hesitation, yes. You tried to remember his props.
I did.
Go on, do him for us.
Well, I thought about doing him, but obviously his phrase is sort of like that, and it's like that, and I thought, that's repetition, I wouldn't be able to do. It's like that, it's like that. Everyone sort of feels like they can do it.
So, Josie, you had a correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course. You take over the subject. Tommy Cooper, 50 seconds starting now.
Ah, the wonderful Tommy Cooper, the man with the fizz. You know, a mate of mine, Sandy, who's a makeup artist, used to work on all his shows, and she said he had one of the biggest faces she's ever seen. And what a wonderful visage. You only have to look at Tommy and you laugh. But his jokes are wonderful, and he was a brilliant magician. One of my favourite jokes was, I've just been to the dentist. He said, there's nothing wrong with my teeth, but my gums have got to come out.
Oh, you challenged.
Repetition of ha. You forgot that you were meant to keep going.
I did.
But I love it that you told the joke, you loved the joke, you tell it again, and you laugh just as loud.
I know, I'm stupid.
No, it's good.
No, that's lovely. Paul, correct challenge. 20 seconds still available. Tommy Cooper, starting now.
I watched Tommy Cooper's last television appearance live at Her Majesty's, I think it was called, 1984. I was watching the programme with a fellow comedian, Norman Lovett.
John, challenge.
Watching.
Yes.
Two
watching.
watchings.
Two watchings, yes. Watching.
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 Yeah, two watchings.
And you were watching him?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you were watching
I
us?
was watching you, you were watching him. It's all wrong, Paul. I've got to just, get it. You're back on track, I'm afraid.
John? Can I bring you back into the game?
Yes?
And so you had a correct challenge. You get a point for that. Subject is Tommy Cooper. 13 seconds starting now.
Tommy Cooper was a wonderful comedian and a brilliant magician. It wasn't just the phrases just like that. It was the way...
Josie challenged.
Repetition of just.
Oh, yes. Terrible.
Good one.
It wasn't just the phrases just like that.
Oh, yes. Well, listen,
Yeah.
my love. Well, yes.
Very good.
And so you've gone back in
Sorry,
there.
was that showing me how to play the game? So So hit the two just one after another as quick as that. That's where my timing's all just. Okay, I've got it.
So, Josie. 6 seconds still available. Tommy Cooper starting now.
One of the best sketches was the hat sketch. He had a box full...
Jason
sorry.
challenged.
No, it was the sketch thing that you said. Sketches and then sketch.
That's right.
I've learnt that now.
Yes. Well, it doesn't matter. All that happens is Josie gets another point.
Yep.
She has 3 seconds still available. Tommy Cooper starting now.
What an adorable man. I only...
Full challenge.
You did have man before.
You did have man before. You said one.
Do you remember?
Yes, I remember.
She remembers. She remembers.
And Paul, you got him with 1 second to go. And 1 second. Tommy Cooper, Paul, starting now.
One of the great comedians of the 20th century.
Right.
Very good.
So, let me give you the situation at the end of that round. Josie Lawrence is still in the lead. She's 2 ahead of Paul Merton and more ahead of Jason Manford and John Sergeant in that order. Josie, the subject is pound shops. Tell us something about those in this game starting now.
In the olden days, when a wage could be little more than a farthing, pound shops were very expensive establishments. But now they're the best places for bargains, and Aladdin's cave, a cornucopia of treasures. Grab your plastic basket and walk down those brightly lit aisles. Cranberry-scented candles, batteries for my household needs, a jumbo roll of cling film, Christmas decorations, a glowing Madonna on laminated cardboard, all for £1. I have £20 in my purse. I'm rich. Look, over there, bin liners, mint-flavoured hand wipes, toothpaste, shampoo, and up there, plastic chrysanthemums. I love pound shops. I love pound shops.
Right, Paul, you want to... What is your
You don't
challenge,
get
by the way?
anything that you need.
Sorry, I think John's trying to run a minicab business while we're doing the... He's outside now, love. He's outside the door. He's ringing the doorbell. I've been with you, Nicholas. He's ringing the doorbell. Times are getting hard, are they?
I thought we were allowed to comment on how well Josie done and what it revealed about Josie's life. I thought that was part of it.
Yeah, well, go on.
And it did reveal, it revealed an extraordinary interest in these rather horrible stores.
John, she loves them. You don't like
No,
them.
I don't.
That's because he's never been to the north. That's where they all are. It's not
He
down
goes to
here.
guinea shops.
If they were
Guinea, everything is a guinea.
Nearly anything.
So where do you go to? Harrods, Fortnum?
I go to the
Masons?
very best places, and if you say, here's £1, you say, what's that? Have you ever seen one of those? Horrible cheap.
John, despite you calling me cheap, I still want you to grab my hair and drag me across the floor.
I think that deserves a bonus point, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, right. So, Paul, you challenge. What was it?
Well, I wrote it down because I was in danger of forgetting it.
I know.
Repetition of plastic.
Oh,
That's right, yes. You mentioned plastic before,
Yes.
right. And, Paul, you've got him in 9 seconds to go. Pound shops starting now.
Josie obviously loves his pound shops. I've wandered in from occasion, but I don't actually find much in there that I like. I prefer staring through the window and conjuring...
Oh, that little delicate little bell is to let us know we only have time for one more round. And Jason, it's your turn to begin.
OK.
And the subject is David and Goliath. What a wonderful subject. 60 seconds as usual. Oh, before we go into the round, you'd like to know the situation. Josie Lawrence is still in the lead, 2 points ahead of Paul Merton, and she's 4 or 5 ahead of Jason Manford, and even more ahead of John Sargent. And so, before we go into the final round, give John Sargent another bonus point, because he needs it, and... Jason,
I don't need charity.
Well, no, you're probably not going charity shops either.
Jason, the subject is David and Goliath. 60 seconds starting now.
David and Goliath, off of the Bible, are 2 famous chaps who didn't get along. They had a massive fight, which I would have liked to have seen. David was 3'4" and Goliath was 12'8". David had a slingshot with a stone in it, which he aimed right in the centre of Goliath's head. He went down, and David went over and chopped his head off, which for me is a bit harsh. He's already won the match, and he's ruined it for the spectators. David and Goliath can also refer to any sort of situation where somebody small is facing somebody big, or somebody's...
Paul
There's a
Challenge.
couple of somebodies there.
Somebody's, yes, and small and big. I loved your interpretation. He wasn't 3 foot nothing, David.
No, he wasn't. He was
Goliath was
5'8".
a giant, but he was normal size.
Well, Goliath was 6'8" at the
Yeah,
time, but
6'8".
in the repeated telling of the story, he's now like 8'3". So people just keep adding a couple of inches, but that's men for you.
I think David was just standard height.
Yes, I think he was.
You're right. But, Paul, you had a correct challenge. And you have the subject of David and Goliath. 26 seconds starting now.
Well, of course, in the Bible, David is not the fancied man at all. Goliath is so huge. It's about winning against overwhelming odds. Perhaps we can also see parallels in the story of the tortoise and the hare. One animal clearly designed for speed, and the other one ambling along.
Josie, challenge.
Sorry, repetition of 1.
Yes, the other one.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes. Well, listen, Josie. 10 seconds to go. David and Goliath, with you, starting now.
Now, imagine the scene. Poor giant Goliath has been asked by his mates to go out there and fight with a little bloke. So he's in a bit of a no-win situation.
So Josie Lawrence is speaking as a whistle wind, gained an extra point. And now it remains for me to give you the final situation. John Sargent, who did very, very well, but he did finish in a very strong 4th place. And Jason was just ahead of him, 1 point ahead. Jason Manford did very well. He hasn't played the game before. Paul Merton, who has played it quite often, was in 2nd place, but 3 points ahead of Paul was Josie Lawrence. So we say, Josie, you are the winner today. Then it remains we say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game. So it's goodbye from this delightful audience here at the Television Centre. It's goodbye from me and Lexus Parsons. And join us again the next time we play Just a Minute!
Steve Punter and Hugh Dennis are about to pull apart the week's news. It's The Now Show on BBC Radio 4 now. And if I can deviate for just a second, the Eggheads follow next here on BBC 2.